the credit unions, they're more owned by their members, right? So they would have less pressure on them, and they wouldn't be having to take directives from their major shareholders, like say Vanguard, BlackRock, whoever's owning the majority of their shares. So I would think the credit unions would tend to be are able to be, if you will, more principled, more willing to listen to their members. Right. The businesses that are going to thrive are going to be the businesses that don't fall for that woke agenda, right?
Yeah.
We're under a slow drip communist, push. And so banking is probably one of the most important things that they need to get in place.
We believe in community. We believe in family, trust, and security. That's our core values. And subsequently, what we do have on our website is our 7 guiding principles. And anybody can go on our website at Bow Valley Credit Union and be able to actually see those 7 principles, of which we maintain and we have for probably close to 20 some odd years.
Adam Soos here for Rebel News. I'm very happy to be on location this evening at a Canadians for Truth event here in Calgary, Alberta. The speaker at this event is Kevin Karpovich, a chair at the Bow Valley Credit Union. Now, if you're not familiar with Bow Valley Credit Union, as their name suggests, they're a credit union that's taking a bit of a different approach to banking. You've no doubt noticed that many of the big banks, well, they share a very woke agenda in their investments and in their advertising. It's no secret. Bow Valley Credit Union is instead taking the approach of quite simply focusing on finances. You'll also very likely be pleased to know that they refused to freeze bank accounts during the Freedom Convoy. They said they would quite simply not be participating in that. They also recently sponsored the Tucker Carlson event. He was in Calgary and Edmonton. Since that time, they've seen $26 million in new investments coming in. So certainly there's an appetite from people for banks that aren't in line with the woke narrative. So we're going to have the opportunity to speak with, as I mentioned, Kevin Karpovich, the chair of Bow Valley Credit Union. We're also going to be speaking with business owner and the boss here at Canadians for Truth, Joseph Bourgault, as well as Olympian and Stanley Cup champion, Darren Fleury.
Currently with Bow Valley Credit Union, we have core values that we speak to, and we've been maintaining those core values, and we haven't changed our core values since we started the organization, which is believing that people have control of their own finances as best they see fit. We offer those nonpartisan to anybody who wishes to avail to the financial services. Subsequently, we'll be speaking about some of the bills that are being passed and are in the works to being passed regarding, the climate change bill, which is the Office of Superintendent of Financial Institutions, regarding B15 it's called, and that's where there's transitional risk and physical risk in lending, and that has to be captured when you do the loans out. Some of the other things are some of the issues regarding the open banking. That's another bill. It's 372. There's another bill that's coming out regarding opening that up. And I believe that it's something that's been mentioned here that's going to be announced at April 16th on the budget. Some frameworks around that.
We talk about sort of this notion, what happened, the debanking, the cancellation of mortgages. We had a mortgage prime and ready to go for an office here. For political reasons, it was canceled. Yeah. People who were involved in the convoy, everyone has experienced it. Is this like the start of like a communist-style social credit banking system where you get access to it based on your behavior?
Yeah, well, if China's messing in our elections, they're messing in our banking system too, because I don't know if you're familiar with what Trudeau said at a ladies' luncheon, that he has an admiration for basic dictatorship.
Even with Sun TV watching for any slip, he was asked which country he most admired and referred to China.
There's a level of admiration I actually have for China, because their basic dictatorship is allowing them to actually turn their economy around on a dime and say, we need to go green as fast as we need to start, investing in solar. I mean, there is a flexibility that I know Stephen Harper must dream about, of having a dictatorship that he could do everything he wanted, that I find quite interesting.
A Canadian politician said, I look for China. I'm admirer of the basic dictatorship in China. That is not only shocking, that is a shame.
Look what's happened since he made that statement. Slowly but surely, we're heading down that road and we're heading down that path. But we also know that, the World Economic Forum, that's their That's if you read Klaus Schwab's book, The Great Reset, it's all in there.
The credit unions, they're more owned by their members, right? So they would have less pressure on them, and they wouldn't be having to take directives from their major shareholders, like say Vanguard, BlackRock, whoever's owning the majority of their shares. So I would think the credit unions would tend to be are able to be, if you will, more principled, more willing to listen to their members.
Right.
The businesses that are going to thrive are going to be the businesses that don't fall for that woke agenda, right?
For folks that obviously lots of oil and energy oriented folks here in Alberta, are there concerns that might limit the capacity for sort of these projects to start up because it'll be much harder to acquire financial support, lending, all those sorts of things to kickstart some of the projects that help build the province?
Yeah, well, that's actually a very good point, because there is a lot of that's going on right now. I think it was about 2-3 weeks ago where they announced, the Bank of Canada, that all the banks were going to have to increase their capital with their risk-weighted assets, is what they're speaking to. Right. They had to raise it up to 3.5%. There's a reason for that, is because they're concerned a little bit with regards to some of these things that are coming up and all these big projects. I mean, these huge capital projects. If you have a higher inflation, obviously you do have more costs in lending. So subsequently, that could actually impede some of these operations. And so this bill is another way of identifying some of those risks that might be associated, and those would then further complicate some of those loans.
You also mentioned open banking. That's a term that lots of people hear about. But for folks who don't know what open banking is, maybe they're concerned about it. They've heard people say good, not good. Can you just lay down the sort of 101 of that?
The bank itself, when you go and you transfer your investments around the banking system, you're trying to actually move them around with least most secure methodology.
Right.
Open banking, right now there's a way called scraping, where they go in, you have to give the institution that you're going to go to or this financial service your password and credentials to get in, and then they go in and get the information they need and transfer. Right. With open banking, what that does is allows, as the government has conveyed to us, is that it's simply a secure method where you can actually go in and they actually have an opportunity where they can go into your account. It comes from the institution that you're going to, gives access to this other one on your finances, and they can go in there and look at something specific to your advancing whatever equities or that you're moving into.
How critical is it to have alternatives, whether it be Bow Valley Credit Union and other credit unions, that even if they're not necessarily on side, but they're focused just on banking, not pushing radical ideology? And do you think if people can choose those options, there'll be enough pressure that some of the major banks will also start to change their tune?
Yeah, I think I think that's why tonight's really important, is to get somebody who's familiar with banking, but also familiar with all of these bills and policies that are going into place. And credit unions are gold-backed. Banks, they're just printing money left, right, and center. Yeah. So eventually, they're going to crash. And they want it to crash. They want the system to crash because then they can implement, your carbon footprint, everything can be on your phone. So
to me, what we're doing here at Canadians for Truth, and I think Rebel and all the honest, truth-seeking news media organizations in the country, right. What we're after is the pursuit of truth. We want principled government. We want principled businesses, and that's what we're going to support: principled government, principled businesses. And so, if you want to see principled news media, I would invite people to become members of Rebel News, True North, Canadians for Truth, Druthers. The organizations like us that are out there to get the truth out to Canadians, to get people like Kevin Karpovich, the board chair of the Bow Valley Credit Union, to give them a voice. Right. We want principled people in our country to have a voice.
What happened during the convoy? The people's bank accounts got frozen, and they're passing a whole bunch of bills behind the scenes that are going to significantly affect how we live day to day. And so, it's obviously an important topic to talk about, because if we don't have money, if we don't have currency, and we all know where we're all headed. We're under a slow drip communist, push. And so banking is probably one of the most important things that they need to get in place.
We saw people actually locked out from their accounts, their banks frozen, all of those sorts of things taking place. Now, your bank didn't do this, but is there sort of a concern that increased government access to accounts, increased sort of transparency, what the government calls it, but then being able to look into your accounts might open up more sort of what people call maybe the social credit banking system, where your conduct determines what kind of access you have to banking?
Well, there's definitely a viability. In saying that, as a credit union here, we basically serving our membership.
Right.
And we're going to maintain that credibility. And I mean, obviously our members there come to our services because they believe in what we have as our core goals.
Right.
And saying such, that's the government in regards to what they do. I can't speak to how they're going to manage that.
Right.
But I guess, when you look at it, everybody has a sense of security and privacy they want to keep. I always look at it from a different perspective, and this is Kevin speaking here personally.
Yeah.
My belief is maintaining that, and necessarily that everybody has to get information. That information, they have to make their best informed decision. So however you treat your privacy of your information is everybody's level of tolerance. And what that level is for everybody changes. So some people really think that's a great opportunity. Others have some challenges to that. And I don't think there's one thing that fits everybody.
Right.
There's an option.
Well, for the in-depth feature-length version of the conversation that I just had with Kevin Karpovich, Canadians for Truth will actually be sharing the full presentation tonight. That will be certainly a much more deep dive into some of the financial questions and concerns that are coming. That should be available in a month or two, probably at canadiansfortruth.ca. You can access some of their past events there as well. So I encourage you to check that out. I again want to thank our friends at Canadians for Truth for inviting me out here and allowing me access to some of their incredible guests and speakers. Always a privilege. And as always, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. For Rebel News, I'm Adam Soos. It's abundantly clear that Canada needs independent banks, but it also needs independent media. We don't get big handouts for playing government games. We work on behalf of you, the people, and as such, we rely on your support to ensure that we can do what we do, and that is tell the other side of the story. So I'm asking you now to consider subscribing to Rebel News Plus. You'll get access to a lot of exclusive content that you can't see anywhere else. Plus, you're going to keep us out here doing this important work.